and welcome to the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce and the Women's Enterprise Centre of Manitoba's virtual forum focusing on the impact of climate change on Manitoba's small and medium-sized businesses. My name is Elizabeth Saftiak, and I am the Vice President of Policy and Government Relations at the Manitoba Chambers, and I'm pleased to be your moderator today. On behalf of our team at the Manitoba Chambers and our partners, the Manitoba Environmental Industries Association, Novel Futures, and the International Institute for Sustainable Development, we acknowledge that Manitoba is located on original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Red River Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Truly thank you to the Women's Enterprise Centre of Manitoba for your collaboration today on today's webinar. It's now my pleasure to introduce Matt Cashton, Chief Executive Officer at the Women's Enterprise Centre, to bring greetings.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and thank you for connecting with us to bring this information forward to entrepreneurs in the province of Manitoba. As Elizabeth said, I'm the CEO of the Women's Enterprise Centre of Manitoba. And for those of you that may not be aware of what we do, we're a nonprofit organization, and we are here for women entrepreneurs and their partners to start, grow, and even perhaps sell their businesses. We do that by advising clients. We have business advisors on staff. We provide financing, so we have loans up to $150,000, and then we also provide opportunities to learn through our workshops, our training sessions, webinars like this, and we have networking events. So when the chamber approached us on this and said, would you like to have a lunch and learn with the business community with the entrepreneurs on is your business ready for climate change? It's a bit of a passion of mine, and it's something that organically we need to learn and adapt for our businesses. So I'm looking forward to what Darren has to share with us, and hopefully when you walk away from today, you can take a few takeaways with you that you can apply quickly. So that would be a great goal to be able to do that. So thank you for coming today.
Thanks very much, Max. So the goal of today's session with the Women's Enterprise Centre is to begin a conversation on climate change and how it might be impacting the way that you are doing business here in Manitoba. We also wish to build awareness and capacity on the importance of building resilience to climate change and achieving carbon reductions. We aim to learn about good practice examples that small businesses are taking, and as well as barriers that they might be encountering along the way. So in terms of the bigger picture, Canada has a national adaptation strategy. Canada also has a very ambitious goal to reach an emissions target of 40% below 2005 levels by 2030 and net zero emissions by 2050. So this is happening, and larger organizations are likely somewhat better equipped to deal with the impacts of climate change, and that is why our focus for this initiative are small and medium-sized businesses. We hope to provide a toolkit and a resource guide to enhance your knowledge and to help target strategies. We are truly grateful for your willingness to participate in our session today because we will learn from you. And these insights will help to inform our toolkit and our resource guide, which will in turn support the broader business community. So in terms of format for today's session, we'll start by getting a better sense of how climate is changing, why it's happening, discuss the impacts of this change, and then discuss how businesses can act against climate change and build resilience to its impacts. If you have any questions along the way, please just pop them in the chat, and I will do my best to monitor them throughout the next hour. So it is now my pleasure to introduce Darren Swanson. He is the director of Winnipeg-based consultancy Novel Futures Corporation. He's also a senior associate with the International Institute for Sustainable Development. He has over 25 years of experience supporting sustainability issues, including climate change mitigation and adaptation. Darren has designed and facilitated numerous in-person and virtual forums globally for the United Nations, as well as locally for First Nations, communities, governments, and businesses. He holds master's degrees in public administration and international development from Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government and in Geoenvironmental Engineering from the University of Saskatchewan. Welcome, Darren.
Well, thank you very much, Elizabeth, and also Maxine, for setting the stage and for hosting this event today to bring this information to entrepreneurs in Manitoba. We're going to get ready. We have lots to cover here in a short amount of time, lots of important topics. So I think we're just going to launch right into it. And as Elizabeth mentioned too, as you have questions, feel free to use the chat space here in Zoom to put your question in the chat space, and we'll have a few opportunities here over the next hour to check in with you on these questions. But the best place to start here is really at the beginning. Climate change, really, what is it? Why is it happening? What are some of the impacts, and what can businesses do about it? So let's kind of look at some basics. I think we're all quite familiar with the greenhouse effect. We understand how a greenhouse works. The sun's energy can enter into a greenhouse built of glass walls, and that sun's energy makes its way in, but the glass keeps the heat in and warms the greenhouse, and that allows us to grow things in colder temperatures. Now, the Earth's atmosphere works in exactly the same way. The atmosphere, comprised of gases, will let some of the sun's energy in and will trap that energy in and creates warmth compared to the freezing temperatures of space. So the greenhouse gas effect is the atmosphere, the gases produce that greenhouse gas that serves as that window in the greenhouse. Now, the problem is if those gases get too high of a concentration, then the greenhouse can start to get warmer. Now, that's what is happening. And I'm going to show a graph here because the evidence is quite important and it's quite compelling. So what you do see here in this, what at first may look like a complicated graph, is the concentration of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere. So that's along the vertical axis of this graph. And in fact, scientists know what that concentration is in the atmosphere over the last 800,000 years, believe it or not. And that's because of Antarctica. The ice in Antarctica that's been forming over Earth's history traps in atmosphere from long time ago, and scientists can drill down and measure what that concentration of carbon dioxide is. So we have this data going back 800,000 years, which is remarkable. And it shows that the Earth's carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere has varied considerably over the years, over hundreds of thousands of years. But if you look to the very, very far right, you see where we are now, and the yellow line is literally off the charts. And that's why scientists are so concerned right now, and that's why they're alerting this to politicians, is because we are literally off the charts. Atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations have not exceeded 300 parts per million over the lifespan of the Earth that we can record. And now it's way above that, and it's increasing. And we know that that's due to the gases that we are now adding to the atmosphere through the burning of fossil fuels and forms of energy. So we understand that, and scientists are alerting us, and that's the sort of the basis of the issue. Now, when those gases increase as they are now, temperatures warm and the climate begins to change. So for example, I'm going to show you one more graph only. This is just the last graph we'll show, but it's important because you're going to start to see this type of data. This is data about climate both in the past and going forward. This is frost days. So this is the number of days that Winnipeg has a below zero temperature during the day. Okay, so a below zero temperature. And in the gray from 1950 to about now, we've had about 190 days, and now it's about 180 days of frost below zero temperatures in Winnipeg here. So it's been decreasing a bit. It's getting warmer, about 180 days now. So in the color, though, is what scientists are projecting going forward as we continue to add greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And they have three possibilities that they're concerned about. In the red is if we don't do a very good job of reducing our emissions as a global community. The green line is we're kind of doing something, and it's actually having some effect. And the blue line is we're still doing something but not having a big effect. So what scientists are feeling right now is that we're currently on about the red line trajectory in terms of how well we're doing at greenhouse gas emissions. Not great, we're doing something, but it's not fast enough. So what does this mean? By the end of the century, it's possible that Winnipeg could have only 120 days of frost days, 120 days of below zero temperatures. That's 60 days less than we have now. That's 2 months. That's a considerable change in our climate in Manitoba. And that has impacts. So in Manitoba, colleagues and experts at the Prairie Climate Center here in Winnipeg, they project that by the end of this century, Manitoba's summer climate could look a lot like that of Kansas and northern Texas, believe it or not. And they note that this really presents our children with an entirely different climate and a reworking of how we live and thrive in this environment, because there will be impacts like permafrost melting in the north, and that can affect building foundations and release more greenhouse gases. Thinning of the ice in the north in the lakes, so winter roads are less reliable. Increased forest fires because of more summer storms and lightning strikes. More extreme weather in the south in terms of more flooding, higher windstorms, and even less snow cover potentially in periods of time. So these are changes that are real and can have measurable impacts for Manitoba businesses, but it can also create opportunities. So that's what this is all about. It's about understanding how to take climate action as a small business, enhancing resilience. So it's two sides of a coin is how we like to portray it here. On one side is your ability to enhance your resilience to the changes that are occurring, to enhance the resilience of your operations of your business and also your products and services so that they can continue to perform as you like as climate changes. But the other side of the coin is to reduce our carbon emissions, because reducing those emissions then lessens the amount of climate change that will happen overall. And that's important. And a lot of times actions that we do to enhance our resilience can also reduce carbon and vice versa. So we're going to talk about these two sides of the coin here today for the rest of the webinar, and a couple of other sort of things to note about climate action that I think will be useful for from a small business perspective. We like to talk about climate action in terms of a business's home game and an away game. A home game is what you do in your facilities, your operations of your business to enhance your resilience and reduce carbon. So that's your home game, sort of within your walls of your business. Your away game is your products and services that you offer to clients, to the community outside of your walls. And there you can also take action to enhance your resilience and to reduce carbon. So home and away game, important terms for this webinar. Now, we will talk about 3 types of climate action over the next 40 minutes. The first is about assessing risk and opportunities in order to enhance your resilience in both your home and away games. The second climate action is the other side of the coin, reducing emissions. And we're going to talk about a term called the circular economy, which you're going to hear more of in the years to come. And thirdly, we're going to talk about how we can use nature-based solutions, how we can use nature to help with both of those climate actions. And there's lots of good examples now starting to materialize that show the benefit of nature and how cost-effective it can be. Okay, just a quick check-in now, just to see where you are in your journey on climate action. Now, this is a poll we're using. If you have your mobile device, your phone, you could, if you've done this before, you could just hold up your camera to the barcode and then it'll scan, and you can usually just click on a yellow button that appears if you're trying to scan the barcode, and then the poll will appear on your phone. If you can't get it on your phone, you don't have your phone beside you, you can, on your computer, you can try opening up a browser on your another internet window on your computer, and just type slido.com and then type in the code climate action, and that will take you to the survey, and it'll be on your computer screen. And we're going to do a few of these during the webinar, so it'll stay on your screen if you just leave it there. So where are you on your journey? Is this a new topic for you and you're here to learn? Are you you already been thinking about this, about how you could take climate action? You're really wanting to get some more traction, or man, you've already been down this road and you're wanting to learn how others are doing so you can improve your actions. All right, good. So I think everyone's getting a good handle on how to work with the polls. And as expected, we have a lot of people, or the majority of people, have been either thinking about this or it's a new topic and would like to get started and learn how to get started. So that's exactly what we're here for. All right, good. So we're all set up for that. You can leave that your phone handy and it'll pop up again when we go to another poll down the road. I think, Elizabeth, maybe we'll just, this is just a check-in. If you have questions, to put them in the chat space. We don't need to stop at this point. I'll just keep rolling here. We're going to have a stop period at the end where we're going to have a chance to address questions directly. You can turn on your camera even and ask, but for now you can put them in the chat space. And also at the end, I'm going to ask you a few questions as well near the end. But yeah, use the chat space if you got questions, and that'll help us get ready to answer near the end. Okay, let's get rolling on the first climate action. And this is about assessing risk and opportunity in your business so that you can enhance your resilience to climate change. And this is a really key piece. And I think we have an intuitive understanding for the importance of this coming out of the COVID pandemic. When something comes in and disrupts your business and you have to make changes on the fly, how can we work to anticipate other types of changes, disruptions to your business going forward, and plan in advance? And this is what this is all about now, to try to plan in advance for the disruptions from climate change. So first thing to talk about, this term resilience. Now, building resilience is all about three things, really. You have three dials to reduce resilience. One is to actually be able to reduce the hazard itself, the occurrence of a pandemic, the extent of climate change. Those we sometimes have less control over, but those are dials that the global community and provincial governments and federal governments are trying to help with. We also, though, have the ability to reduce our exposure to hazards, to increase our resilience, and also to increase our vulnerability or decrease our vulnerability to those. So if you're thinking about COVID, reducing your exposure to the pandemic risk is about, social distancing measures, wearing masks, those types of things. Reducing vulnerability in a COVID pandemic was about actions like vaccines to help increase immunity. Now, when we think about hazards, they're coming from all directions. We have climate change that we're going to get into, where we need to be thinking about, but there's lots of other things out there that are disrupting businesses. Pandemics, cyber threats, financial shocks. So what colleagues at the Council for Canadian Academies, a group of experts, is recommending to Canadians is that we really try to understand the full risk landscape, whether we're a small business or a large business. And that helps us understand where resources are most needed, and to help even identify actions that could help address multiple risks at the same time, help you save money. So this is an important thing. So we're going to talk about climate risk here for this webinar. And when we talk about climate risk, there are a couple of different types of risk that we'll cover in the next two slides. The first is about direct physical risks and opportunities of climate change. And the direct physical risks come from if there's extreme weather and temperature that are disrupting your business. Climate change could bring in new pests and invasive species to Manitoba, or just make them more prevalent. Does that affect your business? Changes in the growing season, if you're in the food sector, shifts in the demand for tourism, changing from winter to summer based on seasonal climate shifts. So disruptions to your supply chain from extreme weather, those direct physical impacts. But there's an entirely other different type of risk and opportunity that presents itself. And those are called indirect transition risks and opportunities. So for example, climate change is expected to result in considerably less sea ice in the Arctic oceans in our north. That will open up commercial shipping lanes in the north. And countries are already starting to anticipate that. If that happens, the northern communities will experience commercial opportunities, economic growth, and there will be a big change. And the north could become a much busier place than it is now. What does that mean for your business? Are there opportunities? Are there risks? There could be supply chain opportunities. If you're a climate-friendly business, then maybe businesses will want to work with you more and buy products from you. There could be changes in policy and regulations like the carbon price, and how does that impact your business? New legal liabilities, new building codes coming out to make buildings more resistant to climate change. Are your buildings up to building codes? And if not, is there liability? And there's also changes to consumer preferences. Consumers may now shift to more climate-friendly products that use less carbon and emit less carbon. And also employees may be looking to work for companies that are climate friendly. So if you're a company that is hiring, this could be an issue. So these are indirect risks. But there are ways to get a handle on this. And that's kind of the one. There are a number of tools to get a handle on assessing risk. And we have a primer, a little 4-page document that we're going to make ready for you within about a week's time and circulate that will help you with some of these methods that are out there. But just for now, here's one that any business from 1 person to 500 persons could use. And that's called strategic foresight. And the process, generally speaking, is all about insight, or about foresight. It's about understanding the future. It's about insight based on that foresight, and it's about taking action. 3 simple steps. So in the foresight step, you may sit around a table with yourself or with staff members and ask, how might the climate change in my area? And there are tools out there that can help answer that question. So for example, the graph I showed you earlier of frost days, I went to the climatedata.ca website and I clicked in Manitoba or Winnipeg, and it produced how a number of climate projections for temperature, frost days, and other types of things that you might want to know about. So that was quite easy. Also, there's a brochure that colleagues at the Prairie Climate Center have produced for Manitoba, how the climate may change for different cities and what some of the impacts could be. So reading those helps understand how might the climate change in your area. Using that information, you can get insights by asking another question. How might changes in climate impact my business? Whether it's in my home game, my facilities, my operations, or my away game in my products and services. And it's important to remember that these impacts could be both direct physical effects or these indirect transition risks that we talked about. So for example, maybe if it's you see the projections. So Manitoba is going to have warmer summers and more extreme heat days. That is being projected. What does that mean for your business? Is that going to be an issue? There is a carbon price now that is trying to incent the less use of fossil fuels. Does that affect your business? These are the types of insights you want to talk about and to explore. The final step is just simply thinking about action, asking the question, what should I do to mitigate the risks or the opportunities that are potentially out there for me as a business? And to create that action list becomes a strategy for your business that will help you out and be ready. All right, so there's ways to learn more about how to do strategic foresight. There's for-fee training available online through a place called the Institute for the Future, and there's some free webinars that the Winnipeg World Trade Center has available on their website that I was involved in, and just provides some other free resources. Okay, so there was just one example. Just a quick check-in now, back to the poll. So considering those climate risks and opportunities, what risks and opportunities might have the most impact on your business going forward? So just scan through this list here. So there's a number of things on the screen here, but on your phone or computer screen, you'll have the full list. But just look through these, maybe select up to 4, which from your business, think about your business and how it's operating. Which of these could create a risk problem for you or an opportunity if you're a service provider? Is it extreme weather events like winds and tornadoes? Is it flooding? Is it changes in growing season? Are you worried about could consumer preferences changing start to affect your business? Legal liabilities? Just kind of reflect on that for a moment. It's a good little thought exercise to help prepare a person for how to think through this. For me, there's a number I think that will impact my business. I'm a service provider and I provide risk assessment services. So unfortunately, in this context, there's more opportunities for me as a small business, a one-person company. Okay, all right, so people are reflecting on this. And this is the part of insight. This is understanding how things might impact your business. And this is a bit of the thought exercise. So thanks for playing along on that. Okay, we do need to move on here. And I'm going to move fairly quickly through a next couple of topics. But the other side of the coin in climate action is about reducing carbon emissions. And that's quite important because it's not only helps to lessen the overall extent of climate change, but there are also some actions that can also help increase your resilience. And we want to talk about, and I want to introduce to you this concept of the circular economy that you may or may not have heard of so far. The circular economy is different from what we have now, which is referred to as the linear economy. We use lots of natural resources. We produce lots of waste, and very little of that is recycled back into the economy to reuse. So that's the current linear economy. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The circular economy is about using at the minimal amount of natural resources, producing a minimal amount of waste, and reusing as much as possible in the economy over time, which makes more sense. So you're going to hear this word a lot going forward. In a circular economy, it's projected, the Canadian government projects that just plastics management alone, using a circular economy approach, less waste, reusing materials, can reduce about 1.8 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions in Canada. It can generate billions in revenue through new opportunities and create up to over 40,000 jobs, even through up to 2030, the year 2030. So these are opportunities by shifting to a circular economy and getting benefits at the same time. Colleagues over at Supply Chain Manitoba have produced a really wonderful study and resource on establishing circular economy principles and practices in Manitoba. There's a good link there, and you can find out more information about how Manitoba businesses are starting to think about the circular economy. There are ways and methods to start to really get a handle on this, participating in the circular economy. And here's just one useful table that produces or helps you understand three main ways to participate in a circular economy as a business. It's called the 10 R's. And there's 10 R's that are shown here in the table, and they refer to smarter product use and manufacturing. They relate to extending lifespan of products and the useful sort of reuse of materials. So for example, if you're using R1 and rethinking, you are trying to make products more intensive, maybe through the sharing of products or putting multifunctional products on the market. If you're reusing, as a business, you're maybe reusing another another product that has been discarded and you're reusing it in your products to fulfill a new function. You could be repurposing a product. For example, R7, a discarded product or its parts has become a new product. Or we can be doing the recycling that we know most, to keep products at least in the supply chain. So this is an interesting and a useful tool to understand opportunities. But let's talk about some examples because that's where it makes the most sense. So let's talk about a small business in Russell, Manitoba, Tin House Designs and Coffee Company. We heard from them back in 2019 when we were doing a Manitoba Chamber Forum in Russell, Manitoba. Tin House was established by two residents of Russell back in 2013. And they have a home game and an away game where they're really taking climate action in a number of ways. They removed the use of paper altogether, for example, in their home game. They encourage their customers to use reusable grocery bags. Their shipping orders, this is a good one. Their shipping orders are consolidated to reduce the need to drive more than once to the same area. Composting they use, so coffee grounds, potato peelings, eggshells are used as fertilizers in their own garden that produces products for their business. Again, in their products, their away game, they bring in products and sell products that are made of renewable materials to reduce the use of plastics in the town. So bamboo toothbrushes they sell, glass straws, wool dryer balls, things like that. And they also, the herbs and the other ingredients come from their own garden and supports local food and reduces shipping and reduces packaging. So they're doing lots across the circular economy, and a lot of these contribute to carbon reductions. Just quickly, another example here in Winnipeg. In Winnipeg, there's what we have now called the Peg City Car Co-op. Really interesting, ride share. So in 2007, 5 volunteers met to discuss this potential of a car share program in Winnipeg. And they established officially in 2011 the Peg City Car Co-op with 3 vehicles. And this is about sharing vehicles. So people that do not want to own their own vehicle for whatever reason can get into this co-op to share these vehicles and to get them when they want. Now they have 90 vehicles with 3,000 members in Winnipeg. And of course, their mission is to really provide safe, reliable, and inclusive car sharing to Manitoba. So this is this rethink aspect in the 10 R's. Sharing products helps to kind of contribute to a circular economy, lowers carbon emissions, and provides services. One more just quick example. This is now a larger business, but up north in Churchill, Merv and Linda Gunther started Frontiers North Adventures back in 1987. And now they are actually in their Tundra buggy, in their Churchill tourism business, the Tundra buggies are now starting to use recycled batteries from the New Flyer industry buses, the electric buses. So they're taking a previous product and repurposing it and extending its life cycle by using them in the tourism buses up north now. And that's done in collaboration with Red River and New Flyer Industries. So partnerships develop. So that's a really nice example too about repurposing products. Okay, just thinking again about the 10 R's. This is the list that should show up on your poll screen again. Think about your own business, and reflect on the 10 R's here in this list. Which of these could you potentially think that you may be able to implement in your business and in turn help reduce GHG emissions? Which makes sense in terms of your business? Recycling, I think a lot of us are already doing the recycling in some manner, even if you're a small or a large business. So I think that's something that a lot of people are thinking about, but the circular economy is about much more than just recycling. Multifunctional products, reducing use less inputs, I think is a probably one that is quite common. Discarded products. reusing products, refurbishing products, and repurposing. There are some nuances to these definitions, and the resources and links that are provided help a bit more of an understanding of what those are and how you can potentially use some of those in your business and achieve reductions in carbon emissions at the same time. Okay, I think everyone's taken a peek at those and reflecting on those aspects a bit. Of course, that takes more thought than the 30 seconds you have now to do this, but it gives you an example of these are useful tools. These are practical things that can help us think about our business strategies and how to kind of move forward and help you take climate action to not only help with the carbon reduction issue, but also help you build resilience at the same time. Okay. All right. Clock is ticking, so let's move on to the last topic here before we stop and have time for some questions and for me to ask some more questions to you, actually. Nature-based solutions. Now, this is an area where both can help you enhance resilience in a cost-effective way and help you to also reduce carbon. And there's a number of ways through which this is going to happen. So we can talk about this right now. So first, some terminology that you will hear as you're thinking about nature-based solutions and the way you can use nature to help you build resilience and reduce carbon emissions. So nature-based solutions, the formal definition, is really about measures or actions that can protect, restore, and manage our nature, our natural systems. And this is with the aim of providing some service that is of benefit. All right, so maintaining forests, maintaining wetlands, things like that can provide benefits. That's sort of nature-based solutions. And we're going to get into more examples. There's other terminology too that is important just to be aware of. And one of those terms is called natural infrastructure. So it's how you could use nature, but in a more designed and purposeful way to achieve an outcome, to achieve a specific outcome. And an example, and it can be the use of a stormwater pond in a community to control floodwaters and provide habitat and recreational opportunities. Green infrastructure is something that is a term used in urban settings a lot. So you may hear things like green roofs, for example, or even rain gardens, those types of things, and even tree canopies in towns and cities actually can be a green infrastructure to reduce heat, things like that. The term natural assets is more when we talk about using intact natural spaces to provide benefits. So whether it's a wetland in your area, or maybe it's a nearby forest, or something that exists already that helps you. Communities and municipalities will take stock of their natural assets now, and they're starting to value what those things are doing in terms of providing services. Okay, so that's terminology. What does it sort of look like? I referred to a few examples already, but if we maybe perhaps start in the upper right box here, these are examples of urban types of nature-based solutions or green infrastructure. So things like permeable pavements to allow rainwater to infiltrate more rather than running off into our sewer systems and becoming contributing to the flooding and overwhelming of sewer systems and flooding on streets. Trees and other vegetation can help really to lower the heat of an urban or a downtown area, a core area where the temperature rises because of all the buildings and the pavement. Trees can really help reduce that heat. Green roofs can do a similar thing about reducing helping you insulate better and also to help reduce runoff off of roofs. And they also provide co-benefits. These areas provide natural spaces that provide mental and physical health benefits. These are known, and as well as air quality benefits. And as well, nature-based solutions can be used in all sorts of other environments. If you're in rural settings, this could be green belts along rivers. These are, shelter belts for trees for helping to protect your buildings or roads from wind and drifts from snow. And there's all sorts of other types of nature-based solutions, depending on where you are, where your business is. If you're right along the coast or a shoreline, there are nature-based solutions that can help protect shorelines and stabilize shorelines from increased storm wave action and those types of things. So there's a whole host of these out there, and we have a document, a short 4-pager that will give you more links to examples and resources where you could learn more about these and get started in thinking about using nature-based solutions. And that 4-pager will also include some guidance to some specific tools. Like there's a tool now that's been produced called Benefit Accounting that will help you understand the benefits that different types of natural infrastructure can provide for your business, right from the use of trees for cooling effects, or maybe it's a rain garden to harvest rain off of your rooftops so you can reuse that water, and how to measure those benefits and how to actually quantify how that can help your business, as well as put a dollar value to those benefits as well. Because some of these solutions can provide significantly cheaper ways to achieve an outcome, like reducing your energy bill because of heat effects, that type of thing. Okay, so I think that's it, Elizabeth, for a lot of the substance of the 3 areas that we talked about. We talked about how to assess risk and opportunity for the purposes of understanding how to enhance your resilience as a business. We've talked about how to reduce carbon emissions in your business, and that will then, through the participation in a circular economy, help you achieve carbon reductions and also help contribute to your resilience. And then, of course, finally, the nature-based solutions, the natural infrastructure, the green infrastructure, these things that small and large businesses can do to really help you do both. Be resilient and reduce carbon emissions. So I'm not sure if we've got any questions yet appearing in the chat space, Elizabeth, but this is a chance. We're a small group here online, so feel free to turn on your camera if you do have a specific question right now that you'd like to ask. It could be about the very first stuff we talked about, the greenhouse gas effect and some of the climate change impacts, or maybe more about any of those 3 areas we talked about. The floor is yours if you have a question. Feel free, you can put it in the chat space. I have questions for you, so don't worry if there's no questions being asked. I got plenty of questions to ask you, for anybody that's online right now. Anything that's top of mind, anything that you've been wondering about that's been confusing so far?
Darren, just to give you a sense of who's joined us, in addition to our Women's Enterprise Center participants, Sandra Johnson from Sigfusson Northern Limited, as well as Margaret Egan from Sinclair Barnes Ltd. So they're businesses who have joined us.
Oh, excellent. Well, welcome, very welcome to you, and I hope this had provided some new information for you that is practical. While you're thinking about questions, I'm going to just sort of put up some questions that I may have to anybody that's online right now, including from the Women's Enterprise Center and its members too. If you have already taken climate action in some way, or even thinking about it, we'd like to hear examples from you. Because we're doing that now. We're going to do a number of these forums, both virtually and in person. And we'll be in Morden and Winkler actually tomorrow, speaking with the chambers, the local chambers there, to learn more about what businesses are doing. So I have 3 questions here. We only have a few minutes, but if you've taken climate action, I want to hear from you. I'd also want to know, what do you need? If you haven't yet, what do you feel you need to start taking action? Do you need more of certain types of information to really help you get started? Or if you've already taken climate action, what has helped or hindered any of your efforts so far? So these are all questions that we're really quite interested in. And in fact, we do have here is the website you could go to if you just want to type it in. And if you think about it after the webinar is over, this website is live. And if you could scan it with your phone again, the barcode on the right. And I didn't have the, I'll have to copy that, the actual link there. I'll copy the link here in a moment when I go to the web page for that page. So just as a backdrop, you can go to this website directly, and I'll just copy the link, and I'll just put it in the chat space right now. If you can't scan the barcode, you could go to this link and it'll take you to this page. And what you see on the screen here are some examples of past forums that we've had where businesses have shared what they've been doing. So the first column here is about if you've done anything to enhance your resilience. Have you assessed your risk in any way, even thought about it? And here are examples from businesses that we've heard from in the previous webinar. Have you reduced carbon emissions, or do you provide products and services that can help others reduce emissions? We heard from a number of Manitoba businesses in the past webinar. And third column here is nature-based solutions. If you've used those, or if you help others use those, we wanted to hear from you, and we have some interesting examples here of what Manitoba businesses have done. And on this link, you can add your website also as well. So if you're doing something interesting, put it on here and put the link to your website because people will be looking at this. Any examples from members so far on the that are online? Okay, we've got in the chat space. Okay, you got general contracting, remote access. Oh, that's a good example. They're really working in accessible terrain. If Sandra does have some insights on the challenges of construction and civil engineering in remote areas. So now this is products and services providing, how is changing climate affecting construction season and terrain constraints. So there's a whole world there. I also work as an engineer. I work as an infrastructure resilience professional, helping businesses understand how climate is affecting infrastructure.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. It's having an impact on our industry. And for the topics that you've presented, I guess we're just in the information gathering. At this point, we are impacted by the emission standards that are being pushed down on our industry, and just trying to figure out how to put a framework in place to work within those legislations that are being passed down and do our part on the climate change.
Okay, good. So you've been inherently thinking about where your risks and opportunities are, and the indirect transition risks of the standards and legislation that are coming out is something you're keeping an eye on, which
Yes.
is a great start. And I guess, yeah, those are changing over time, and so yeah, that's a bit of a sort of a constant thing to be keeping up to date on, isn't it? You work mostly in remote locations?
Yes, our work is primarily northern remote communities,
Okay.
And in the mining industry. So
Okay. I've had lots of experience working in the mining industry. In working in remote locations in Manitoba, how much does your work rely on the winter road season?
I would say probably 30% of our business.
Okay, so then that's
either participating in assisting communities with constructing their winter roads, or just requiring the winter roads to gain access to the communities that we're working in.
okay. So there's a key area, and I know there's a lot of work going into understanding sort of how much the winter road season may change because of the warming temperatures. I think you're probably already experiencing that now in terms of the length of the winter road season being a bit variable from year to year. Any sort of things you're having to do now to start to adjust to that, or is the impact not quite there yet to where it's changing, you're having to change business practices?
We haven't seen it change yet where it's become a trend that the season's getting shorter or there's issues constructing the roads. Every year is very different, so no trends showing up yet.
Yeah, good. Well, it's good that you deal with the year to year variability. And I think then over the time as the decades pile up, then it's anticipated winter road season to be shorter. So our community is starting to look at ways to kind of deal with that shorter season and what are some of the options to have on the shelf. And climate action too, at doing that sort of foresight, inside action part, the actions sometimes are things that can be done that make sense to do right now that are either no regrets costs or low costs, but there's also things that could be done and triggered at a future date as the trends become more obvious. And those are called there's called robust actions, which are things we can do now that make total sense across a lot of different possibility of climate change. And triggerable actions are the actions that we may want to just have thought about, be ready to do, and then implement at a future date. So that's an important sort of terminology distinction. Any other thoughts on areas where well, let's take a look too at another area. I want to talk a bit about, we only got just a minute or so left, but I wanted to talk about what do you feel, whether you're with the Women's Association, with Women's Enterprise Center directly or a member, business member, what do you feel you need to start taking climate action? What is maybe, is it information specifically? Is it more frequent updates on policies and regulations? And there's you can use this poll, and we'll keep this live too. This will be live following the event, so you can sort of participate in this. And this is a word cloud too. This will kind of appear right on the screen. We're curious, yeah, as to what you need to really start to kind of take the action that you would like to take. More understanding of education, that's a big part. Yeah, updates on policy and regulation because it is changing. Examples, okay, that's good. And then hopefully we're going to be able to help to do that. We have some already on the Manitoba Chamber's website, and we hope to add to that as we go to more communities and more local chambers across the province over the coming weeks, and more awareness of the content. Thank you very much for that. Small steps to begin. One of the big words we heard in the forum, I believe this was in Dauphin, was taking climate action can sometimes feel like drinking water from a fire hose. So it's about taking small steps first, just thinking about where action can be taken and really going for this low-hanging fruit to begin with and then moving forward. Okay, thank you very much. We are at the end here. I want to turn the floor back to Elizabeth and then also to Maxine. And I want to thank you then for your participation here and the information you provided. That space to provide examples will be live after the event. Let's turn it over to Elizabeth so we can end this webinar right on time.
Thanks very much, Darren, for facilitating a really engaging discussion and providing this information to the Women's Enterprise Center. Max, I'm hoping that you can provide a bit of a summary, sharing your key takeaways from our session today.
Yeah, thank you. That was very informing, Darren. I learned a lot in a very short time. You did a great job, so thank you for that. That was wonderful. Yeah, some of my things of note that I heard warmer summers in Winnipeg, like Kansas and Texas by the end of the century. So that was a really kind of grabbed me. And the lower number of frost days by the end of the century, going down to from 180 to 120. And when you put it into a context of 2 months, that's very significant. And it draws you into the conversation of how to take climate action and how to build that resilience. And I like what you said about seeing the opportunities as well, and capturing that in your business planning into the future for you and the next generation of your business, who's going to be running it. The other thing I thought that was an easy takeaway was the home, and what's your home game and your away game. So how in the home game you can apply some of this into your daily operations and what you can do with your products and services. So that's an easy, sit down at the table with a piece of paper and just come up with some of those ways to already get the ball rolling. And then yes, I've heard about the circular economy and interesting context of how that relates into the climate in terms of using, the idea of using the minimal amount of natural resources, having the least waste, and reusing some of those natural resources. So that's circular rather than linear, which we've been in, and why we're moving towards 120 days. And the other guide I thought was really helpful was the 10 R's, where you could look at that guide and say, what are some, maybe you're not doing all 10, just like the sustainable goals that we, I don't know how many, there's 30 or whatever, but which ones are your business going to be key about, and use that as a tool, right, to bring in consumers, because you're right. There's a lot of people out there that are attracting, and I can say that my kids who are in their 20s are very much attracted to buying certain products now based on, and like, Mom, don't buy me, and I don't buy them toothbrushes anymore, but they buy their own, but I don't want a plastic toothbrush anymore. And when the dentist gives them a plastic toothbrush when they get their teeth cleaned, they say, no, thank you, because now they want to use bamboo and things like that. So using that checklist, and that's a way to grow your business. That's a great way to find a niche, because that generation coming up is a lot, very sensitive to this, and all generations are, myself included. And then, the benefit accounting was interesting to me. As a CPA, I've heard about that, and being able to monetize that on your balance sheet, and how do you calculate what the value is to your business. But that's, for some businesses, that's going to be a benefit on the balance sheet. So just like goodwill, when you're ready to sell, that could be something that will help your business. And just at your last slide about what we can do, like what we can do for WECM, we'd love to be able to inform our clients, and so this is great learning for us. I'm glad some of my staff are on this webinar to be able to think about that when we're looking at business plans and looking at expansions for some of the things maybe we can suggest and see opportunities now that information is power, and knowledge helps us grow the opportunity for our clients as well. So us knowing about some of these policies coming in, like a lot of our clients are affected by the plastic, the change in, takeout and delivery, and that kind of thing. So even what's coming down, what can clients expect? What do they need to adjust for? And when are the deadlines? Because sometimes those change. And through COVID, the plastics thing, I don't know how many times that changed. I don't even know if that's a thing now, or if that date has passed. So that information that we could be as a conduit to entrepreneurs out there, saying, are you aware 6 months from now? So if we can be a source of information to our entrepreneurs, that would be wonderful. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Max. And thank you again to the Women's Enterprise Center of Manitoba for hosting the webinar today, and for your ongoing collaboration with the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce. We value it so much. So what's next? We're holding more in-person and virtual webinars, and they are planned throughout the province in April and May. Our in-person forums are planned in collaboration with local chambers of commerce, and just like today's webinar, our virtual platforms are held in collaboration with organizations and associations in our province. So we will be using the insights gleaned from these sessions to update the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce Climate Action Toolkit. This will involve updating the primers on climate action, providing new case examples of Manitoba businesses who have successfully implemented climate action, as well as a synthesis of barriers and barrier busters. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. Max will have my contact information, and that's it for us.